Welcome to Silicon Valley Health Institute. How many first-time visitors? Welcome. Welcome. We hope to have you back. We're here every third Thursday of the month. We bring world-class experts to you to help you with your health, bring probably information that you probably won't hear from your doctor or friends and family, so we're very much on the cutting edge. We've been around about 20 years now. We're a 501c3. My name is Robert Meekemiller. I'm a nutritionist. I've been on the board for a couple years now. So we're a nonprofit, so your donations and memberships help us do what we do. So thank you for coming and spread the word on we're here and we're, like I said, bringing world-class experts to you. So that's the membership and donations. We're $60 a year or $10 per meeting, so it's quite a deal for that. Please silence your cell phones. If you're concerned about EMFs, go ahead and turn them off. If you must take an emergency call during the meeting, please take it outside so it doesn't interrupt our speakers. We appreciate that. And the meeting is streaming live on the web, and the video is eventually posted to the website, so you can always come back if you missed something during the meeting and rewatch it and get a little more deeper into the information if something slipped by you. And so we always start with a forum to open up. So if you have a question, wait until I bring the microphone to you so the people at home can hear your questions, and then we have experts here that can try and help you answer any questions as well. But the microphone helps our recording as far as the video goes, so raise your hand if you have questions and I'll bring the microphone to you. The restrooms, we'll take a break between the first main speaker and the second speaker. The restrooms are down the hall to the left, about 100 yards on your right, and yeah, it's good exercise. Okay, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make for other events maybe, or, okay?
The Foundation for Mind Being Research has a talk tomorrow, parapsychology and remote viewing and physics, and it should be from a couple of very high-level leaders in this field, Drs. Hertock and Dr. Rauscher, so it should be a good one. It's at 7:30 at the Unity Church in Palo Alto. It's just right up the block, basically. So, but it should be a very interesting lecture.
They're like our sister nonprofit, and very interesting information there too. Any other announcements? Okay, so like I said at the beginning, we open it up to anyone in the audience that has any questions about their health, anything about any ailments they may be having, any research that they've found. So does anybody have any questions? Okay, 1 second.
I have a friend that's dealing with severe hip pain, and he's considering a hip replacement. And I just happened to mention him. I know I will get hip pain from eating certain foods, and suggested he might look into changing his diet. But does anyone know of any books or websites that I could lead him to find an alternative?
Do you want to answer that?
I suggest looking into Prolozone. We had several speakers here. It's an ozone treatment. It's an injection. And before any sort of joint replacement, I'd give the Prolozone the first cut, and it'll probably, 80% of the time, you'll take care of it. Do we have we have videos of those presentations. So look at our archive. svhi.com, and Schallenberger. Dr. Schallenberger is one of the people. I can't figure. Do you know who the fellow is up in?
Dr. Robert Rowan.
No,
Marin?
Larkspur. I can't think of it. Prolozone.
I'd also suggest doing collagen therapy at the same time. Um, there's a lot of mineralization and collagen protein that are involved in joint health, and so many people are walking around today with serious magnesium deficiencies and vitamin D deficiencies, and even K2 deficiencies, where they're not mobilizing calcium properly, and they get the calcium into soft tissues, and it basically undermines the joint. There's also dietary stuff regarding solanine for those people who are sensitive to it, and a lot of joint pains are aggravated by the nightshade family of vegetables, so it's worth going off them for 2 weeks and then reintroducing them and eat nothing but solanine for a meal and just see if the next day you're reactive. But I do have a story from one of the members of the forum who's left, no longer coming here, but she had a joint replacement, and her hip joint was necrotic, so it had to be replaced. But she did collagen therapy for months to try to rescue it. It didn't work, but she had a joint replacement done, and she healed faster than any other person in the history of the clinic that did the joint surgery for her. She was doing collagen protein, vitamin C, bioflavonoids, transdermal copper, horsetail herb for the silicon, and magnesium as well with the vitamin D and K2 program. And it was just amazing how fast she healed. So that aspect of it, even if the prolozone therapy isn't fast enough and good enough, or they don't get into it fast enough, at least they're looking at the prospect of a faster recovery from having a joint replacement.
Also, too, the physiological aspect of it. So I had chronic hip pain for about 7 years, and I grew up with 2 chiropractors as uncles. So I did chiropractic for about 7 years, and it wasn't like go away for 6 months and then come back for 3 months. I'd go back to the chiropractor, back and forth. So I said, well, something's wrong here. I'm not getting to the cause. Why isn't this stopping? And first person I found was Pete Agoscu, who teaches bilateral function. So we have 2 shoulders, 2 hips, 2 ankles, 2 knees. And if they're out of balance, then it's causing pain. So to put yourself in bilateral function or have the highest bilateral function you can would really, be a beneficial avenue. Then I didn't do the exercises that he gave me, and I found Jean Couch in Palo Alto. She teaches balance, and we spend 100% of our time standing, sitting, sleeping, and walking. And she teaches those elements there. And I haven't really had a need for a chiropractor, but I still go to chiropractors. But it was a really profound shift for me, understanding what she teaches. So it's called the Balance Center in Palo Alto.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question about magnesium. As far as musculoskeletal pain goes, I've discovered I've enjoyed a lot of relief from following the practices of Dr. John Sarno. He's a back specialist in Manhattan, retired now in his 90s, but he attributes a lot of musculoskeletal pain and other afflictions of the body to psychological causes having to do with even going as far back as childhood rage. And there's a website that put together by grateful patients who have recovered from all kinds of serious ailments by addressing their psychological lives. And the website is a TMS Wiki. So T like Tom, M like Mary, S like Sam, wiki.org or com, I've forgotten. But you can look up your symptoms on there, or you can look up something like hip replacement or migraines or back things, and by simply reading his short books, you'll gain a lot of insight into why you're suffering pain. So I would, for anyone with musculoskeletal or other aches and pains, Dr. John Sarno, tmswiki.com or org. And I have a question about magnesium. Our speaker mentioned magnesium imbalances. I wonder if can a lack of magnesium contribute to neuropathy? And when I Googled your name, I came into other sites that mentioned magnesium.
By all means, magnesium is a core electrolyte. It balances calcium, it balances sodium. So any of the electrolytes, when they're out of balance, can produce kind of multi-system problems that could manifest as either pain syndromes or joint problems or some kind of degenerative issue. There's also a really fascinating aspect of pain that was basically discovered and characterized almost 100 years ago by Dr. Emanuel Ravisi, who died, like 2003, or he was like 103 years old, something like that. I can't remember exactly where the 3 comes in, but he found that pain either had an acid characteristic underlying it or an alkaline characteristic underlying it. And he worked with cancer patients back before narcotics were a mainstream kind of medical support. And so he had a lot of cancer patients who were in extremes of pain. And he found that by giving them a challenge of a cup of black coffee and a raw egg yolk, he was able to diagnose if their pain increased, they had alkaline source pain. And if their pain decreased, they had acid source pain. And then he would use that information to guide the cancer intervention that he would give them. And it turns out that cancers are either acid or alkaline cancers, and most of them are alkaline, but still, he was able to characterize people, and he said this test was about 85% effective at diagnosing people in terms of their pain. And I've worked with clients, even something as simple as a vinegar challenge, a couple of tablespoons in a glass of water, and you take a sip, and then wait a minute, take a gulp, wait a minute, and then chug it. You can notice your pain. Does it get worse or does it get better? And then the next day you can try a challenge of baking soda in water and do the same kind of sip, swallow, chug, gulp, kind of thing, and get an insight. If one makes your pain less and the other makes your pain worse, you can then presume that there's this kind of pH imbalance underlying your pain. Even if you have a degenerative condition, just knowing that there's a problem that's aggravating your pain helps people cope with their pain.
And so what ameliorates that?
Changing your acid and alkaline status. So
if you get affected by acid, then you'd want to take alkaline? Is that the idea?
Yes, or you'd want to control inflammation. So you have acid that comes from your energy metabolism. So your mitochondria are cranking out energy. And they either produce carbon dioxide, which is carbonic acid, or they produce lactic acid. So that energy production system is a primary acidification mechanism in the human that is augmented by diet. So if you eat meat or you eat oils or grains, you're getting acid from your food as well. But most foods are alkaline, and the body's natural state, independent of that energy production system, the body exists in a more alkaline kind of environment, and so that's primarily the bulk of your diet. So you can look at that process of how you're emphasizing acid or alkaline foods, or what the macrobiotic people would call acid-forming foods or alkaline-forming foods, which can seem quite counterintuitive that something like lemon juice, which is very, very tart to your tongue, is actually an alkalinizing food. So And something like evening primrose oil or fish oil doesn't have any acid taste to it at all, but is strongly acidifying to the body. So it's all about the body's response to the food. And once you understand that there's an acid or alkaline basis to your food, and that's to your pain, and that's influenced by your food, you can shift your diet around to see if you can then control your pain.
Hi, everyone. I was wondering if anybody has heard about an organic night guard. All the night guards that dentists make for me, when I look at the ingredients, they're toxic. And so I'm wondering if anybody knows anything that's not toxic. Thank you.
I'd like to suggest a slightly different approach. I think you'd be wise to get in touch with Clifford Labs and order their blood test for dental allergens. And instead of assuming that something's made out of something that is toxic, it's more important to know if it's toxic to you. And what they do is they test your blood, and they have quite a few things, like 50 or 75 basic elements that they test for. And once they figure that out, then they find out which dental products used in what things have those elements in them. Theoretically, if you skip those, for example, I can't really tolerate gutta percha, as in a root canal. A lot of people think root canals go south. Well, root canals probably go south because the material that's in them you're affected by. So I have silver points in my one root canal that I have, and it's very stable. Anyway, Clifford Labs. It's in Colorado, I think.
Anybody else have any answers for that? Any other questions? Comments? Okay, let's go to our first speaker.